Hi friends, in this video we are going to look at the income tax benefits like exemptions and deductions allowed for salaried employees. So we are going to look for the benefits only for the salaried employees in this video. There are certain allowances which are being paid by employer to employee for meeting certain expenditure. What are those allowances? HRA, LTA, Child Education Allowance and Hostel Allowance are most famous allowances being paid to employees which employee would like to claim. Most of the employees would like to avail these exemptions. So we are going to look at how this can be claimed and what is the conditions to avail this benefit. All these in this video. First, let's see HRA exemption. How is HRA exemption being calculated? For that, first let's see what is HRA, house rent allowance. This is the allowance being paid by employer to employee for meeting the rental expenses for the place where he resides. So this is allowed only for the place where the employee resides. In case if he is residing in a different place and his family is residing in a different place, the allowance is allowed only for the residential place where employee is residing. So how it is calculated, how the HRA exemption is calculated is what we are going to see now. First, for calculating HRA exemption, there are three criteria. One is rent paid less 10% of basic, actual HRA, 40% or 50% of basic depending upon the city, whether it is metro city or non-metro city. For non-metro, 40% of basic. For metro cities, 50% of basic. For metro city, for this purpose, as per Income Tax Act, there are 4 cities only as of now: Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata. Let's see this exemption with an example now. Let's assume basic paid is 25,000. HRA is 12,500, that is 50% of basic. Rent paid is 18,000 and let's assume the employee is residing in metro city. Now the three criteria are rent paid minus 10% of basic, that is rent paid is 18,000, 10% of basic, that is 10% of 25,000 is 2,500. So 18,000 minus 2,500 is 15,500. HRA received is 12,500 and 50% of basic is again 12,500. So in this example, the least amount is 12,500, so that will be allowed as exemption. In a different scenario, in case if the employee is residing other than metro city, in that case 40% of basic would be different. It will be lesser than 12,500. So in that scenario, only 40% of basic, that is 10,000, would be allowed as exemption. This is how HRA exemption is being calculated, because most of the employees have doubt. I have submitted bill for 18,000. Why my exemption is lesser? Why the entire rent is not being given as exemption is a major doubt for a query being raised by most of the employees. So this is the reason, friends. So this is how the HRA exemption is calculated as per Income Tax Act. That's why the exemption is lesser than the rent paid. So now let's see what are all the proofs to be submitted for claiming this exemption. Rent receipt has to be submitted. It can be annual or monthly or quarterly receipt. In whatever way your employer advises you to submit, you can submit in that way. But in case of different rental locations, for example, in case if a person has shifted from one place to another, he has to submit the receipt for the both the places, because the receipt should carry the name and address of the landlord. So it is very important to submit the rent receipt if the person has resided in more than one or two places in a particular financial year. Rental agreement alone may not be sufficient because employer would like to verify the proof of payment. So receipt is mandatory, and receipt should carry these basic details like name, address, and in case of rent being paid more than 1 lakh, it's very important that PAN should also be there in the rent receipt itself. And rent receipt is normally available from the, you can get the format from employer, or it is available in the stationery shop as rent receipt booklets are available. You can get it. And very important that it should be signed by landlord on the revenue stamp. That is very important to submit the rent receipt. Before considering, these points should be considered. And in case of rent paid more than 50,000 per month, there is a mandatory requirement by Income Tax Act that the person who is making the payment should deduct 5% from the rent payment. Next comes the leave travel allowance. Leave travel allowance is being paid for the travel being done during the leave period to employee. So for claiming this allowance exemption, there are few points which has to be considered. Basically, LTA is allocated as a portion of CTC as per the requirement by employee. This is being treated as a flexi allowance. So most of the employers, they give flexibility to employee to fix the amount within certain limit as per the company policy. Now let's see what are the conditions for claiming the exemption. Employee should be part of travelers. Actually, this allowance exemption is allowed for the family members also. In case if employee is traveling along with family during the leave period, it is allowed as exemption. But employer should be part of the travelers. In case if the family alone is traveling, you cannot claim this exemption. And travel should be within India only, and foreign travel cannot be considered for exemption. And it is allowed for the shortest route of travel. In case if the employee has traveled in cab or taxi, he has hired a taxi and he has traveled for a place, whatever is the shortest route available, for that first class AC train fare for number of people traveled will be allowed as LTA exemption, and not the entire travel expenditure as per cab bill or taxi bill is allowed as per the Income Tax Act. In case of flight travel, employee should submit the boarding pass along with flight ticket as a proof of travel. Other travel expenses like local conveyance, boarding, lodging, all these expenses are not allowed under this exemption. Next comes the education allowance and hostel exemption. These are the allowances being paid by employer to employee for meeting the child's education. This is as per Income Tax Act, ₹100 per month per child for school going child. For a maximum of 2 children is allowed for education allowance, and for hostel allowance ₹300 per month per child for a maximum of 2 children. These are the exemptions for allowances. Now we are going to see the deductions from salary. So after allowing all these exemptions, there will be the balance taxable salary. From that, standard deduction of 50,000. 50,000 is directly deducted from that salary. And then professional tax. Professional tax is the one which is being deducted by employer as per the state requirement, like monthly or half-yearly, whatever is the slab allowed. There is a requirement by state government to deduct the professional tax from employee salary. Whatever professional tax is being deducted from salary, that will be completely allowed as deduction from salary. So this is how the exemptions and deductions are allowed for salary income. Thank you.